So our friend Max Wild is back. He's back twice, as a matter of fact. He's back to back. Good to see you again, Max. How are you? So the highest ranking question was, what does it say about our government when the time our nation was taxed the least was under King George III? This is it. You know, they fought the revolution for a 1-cent tax on tea. I remember reading, I think in The Innocents Abroad, or Following the Equator, I think it was Innocents Abroad, where Mark Twain was amazed that Italians were paying 10%, 12% of their total income in taxes to the government, when he said Americans wouldn't put up with a quarter of that. 3-4% of their income, Americans would have just rioted. The problem we have now, Max, is that we are so wealthy, all of us as a country, that they keep taking more and more money. And I'm not going to say we don't really miss it, but it doesn't impact us the way it would if we were short on things. If we were short on things and the government lost $10 billion, and that meant, we didn't eat for 3 days, then they wouldn't lose $10 billion because we'd run them out of office with a pitchfork, which is appropriate. But a combination of things really anesthetize us to this incredible tax rate. And I've just started running a business as a business, even though the business has been open for 3 years or so. I've really only finally had the help of people like Carla and her husband and all the rest of these fine people who've shown me what it's like to actually run a business. And it is a full-time job of one person to do nothing but comply with regulations and taxes. And every time you think you've paid your tax, there's another one. There's just something else you didn't know about. $30 or $3,000 or whatever. It's just, what is this? This is the City of Los Angeles licensing fee. For what? For selling products in Los Angeles. But nobody comes to the store here. We don't have a store. Yeah, but that's okay. What can you do? Nothing. You can move to Texas, I guess. That's one thing. I just wish they would have I wish we could take one Pacific state. That's all I want. And I'll settle for Alaska ultimately. But if we could just take Washington or Oregon or California. I think even Idaho is so lovely, although Idaho's going pretty pink down in Boise, so it's just a constant fight. You have to go out and mow the grass. But yeah, Max, it says that we've got nothing like the resistance to being told what to do that our ancestors had, and it also means that we just pay this money because we feel it in things that we don't achieve or get, but we don't feel it in physical ways in terms of not getting enough food or not having shelter or heat or anything like that. The biggest reason they get away with taking as much money as they get away with, I think if I could change one law, this would be it. This would be it. I'd do this before I would repeal the 17th Amendment. It's payroll withholding. I would make it illegal. Because, as I've said before, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I've gone over this quite a bit. If you get paid $800 a week, let's say, your paycheck says $620, and that's what they've withheld from your check every time. At the end of the year, let's say they've taken 25-30% of your income. They've taken $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. At the end of the year, you get a $700 refund, and you feel great. Oh my God, I'm getting a refund. The government's giving me a check. Hooray! Now, I'm not saying that people don't know that they're working for $800 an hour and taking home $600. I'm not saying that they're not aware of it, but I'm saying that since they never touch the money, it's a different thing. It's academic. This is the hinge upon which these entire tax rates turn. The progressive tax rate, income tax rate, turns on this point. Them withholding the money is not the same thing as them giving you the money that you actually earned and then you having to give back what you pay in taxes. It's nothing like the same thing at all, not even close. So, I mean, think about that. If Americans every quarter had to write checks to the IRS, I do. I've had to start doing that because I own my own business. You get out the old checkbook, and every 3 months you have to write a 5-figure check to the U.S. government and the state of California. They're not 5 figures, but per quarter, you start thinking, well, why am I doing this? Honestly, seriously, there are many times when, when you just, I can't be the only business person in America to feel this way because I came to this party so late. But really, once you see this list of taxes and once a new one comes along, the inclination is just to say, you know what, screw this whole thing. You can have all the money you want to. Congratulations, IRS. You put me out of business. You've taken everything I've got, and now I have to pay you all this money, and that's fine. And I'll close the business because I can't afford to keep things going at a 50% tax rate. And now I'm going to go on welfare. So instead of me pumping money into the system, I'm going to take money out. I'm going to get all the benefits. I'm going to get an EBT card just like everybody else. I'm going to do all these things. It just is almost overwhelming sometimes to get past that. The Bible talks about 10% and Romans and everybody else. 10%, one finger, right? I mean, that's really where you get the 10% from. One of these fingers, guess which one, goes to the government, and the other 9 you get to keep. And that has been considered since pretty much the dawn of writing and culture and history to be the maximum taxation rate is a tenth, tithing. We're way past that. They take a whole hand now, and pretty soon they're going to leave you with 2 fingers. Bernie Sanders, who got millions and millions of votes, basically got millions of votes by saying he wants to cut off 9 of your fingers, and you get to keep 1. What gives them the right, Max? What gives you the right? What gives you the moral right? Well, we need it for the poor. You don't spend it on the poor, and you don't spend it on highways. Our highways are falling apart. You spend it on yourselves. You spend it on retirement programs. You spend it on buying votes and people driving, city commissioners in Detroit driving, Lincoln Navigators, 2 of them. This is where the tax money goes. It just goes to people who steal it legally. And as BB 106 pointed out here in the comment section, it's not just that they spend the $2.5 billion who am I kidding? The $2.5 trillion that they take from us every year. The $2.5 trillion is 50% of our income, more or less, that they take from us. They can't run the government on that. They have to borrow another $1.5 trillion. They have to print it, basically, and charge it to the next generation. And every time they charge more money to the next generation, we have to spend more money of the money that we actually make to pay off this ever-growing interest on this ever-growing debt. I had a friend in Britain, a British girl who I met in Florida when I was in my 20s, and I just simply couldn't believe this was true, but since I've heard out, it certainly is true. She was a tax refugee in the 70s. I want to say maybe it might have been early 80s, but it wasn't much later than that. And she said that her father was quite wealthy in Britain, and she said he left because one year they were going to assess a tax of 103% on him. And I said, Jane, that's impossible. You can't take more than 100% of everything he makes. I'd leave way before they took 100%, but you can't take 103% from this guy. She said, no, that's what they did. They they figured out before Margaret Thatcher got there, they figured out what they wanted, and so they took everything he made that year, plus they took 3% out of his savings and assets. I'm not working for 3 cents on the dollar, Bernie. I said he was taking 90%. He's not. He's talking about taking 96, 94%, 93%, something like that. I'm not doing it. And I don't think anybody else will either. So what happens when you kill the golden geese, the 100 million of us that get up and work every day? They're going to find out if they keep this up. Moving on. We have another